Welcome to Community Conversations. I'm your host, KK Conashiro. The mission of the Fremont Unified School District's Board of Education is to provide opportunities that educate, challenge, and inspire students of all ages and ability levels, while preparing each to succeed in an ever-changing world. The 5-member elected governing board works diligently to shape policy and provide direction for the district. The FUSD board recently named a new president and a new vice president for the 2017 year, and joining us today to discuss the board and its goals are President Ann Crosbie and Vice President Dr. Yang Shao, and of course my favorite co-host Dr. Jim Morris. Thank you so much for being here. Now, I gotta ask, you were normal, what they would refer to as normal, regular board members, and now you got a promotion. Mm-hmm. How did you get the promotion? Is it a nomination kind of a process within the group, or does the community say, okay, now we want a new president, vice president? How does this process work?
The board nominates
okay.
who they would like to have as the president, and that person will be seated for a year, and then next December we do it again.
Okay.
Yeah. During the nomination process, of course, we have the idea in mind that we would allow each and every board member to have an opportunity to try different role in the board.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So from being your normal board member and now you're the leadership of the board, has it changed how you look at things? Has it made you think a different way? How do you handle this?
It's interesting making that transition because as a board member, you know, the meeting goes along and you go with it. As the board president, you direct the meeting. So there'll be a moment where you're like, okay, that item's over. Oh, wait, I'm supposed to be moving us to the next item. Right, okay, here we go. So
great.
It's a little different, you know, but it just takes a little, there's also, I think logistically, you have more sort of, you know, you're kind of paying attention to timing on whether or not you need to take a break and what the next item's going to be, whether you have time for it, those sorts of things, making sure everyone has an opportunity to get their questions answered and speak with things like that.
But every board member has an opportunity to fill these positions, right?
Sure.
So it rotates.
It's not on a strict rotation. We do choose a board president.
Okay.
Generally, though, historically, it's been where everyone has ended up with an opportunity, and generally people only are seated for 1 year, but that is not required. It's not set in stone anywhere that's how it happens.
Okay.
And I think in addition to facilitating the meeting, managing the meeting, the board president also takes on a huge responsibility in helping to plan the agenda, plan the order of the agenda, whether items get onto the agenda or not. And it is a big time commitment to be in that role.
I think also as for the position of a board president, you're in a position to be a voice for the board if a need arises. You know, we allow that person who is in that seat to be, you know, say there was something newsworthy and we needed to have, you know, a response from the board. We tend to do that. And as a vice president of the board, it's really important to have that person. You know, you can't, like you said, there is a huge time commitment, and that everyone can't be everywhere all the time.
Right.
So being able to have somebody who's able to step in if the board president gets sick or isn't able to attend an event, you rely on that person.
Yeah, with that in mind, I actually attended the board president's workshop last December in San Francisco during the annual California School Board Association meeting.
Well, wait, this is good. So you get these new roles, and now you get training on how to handle it. I love that.
Yes.
So you're not just walking in blindly.
Right. There's a whole Masters in Governance program that the California School Boards Association puts on. That's a 5-part training that you go to. It's generally a 1 day, and there are 5 of them. So, and that gives you a lot about being a board member, because if you're a member of the community and then suddenly you're in this leadership role, it's a big responsibility.
Yeah, that's amazing. So did you both attend this training or just?
As a matter of fact, I finished those 5 courses last October.
Okay.
So this is the pin to show off to everyone. No, really. They gave us the pin to try to encourage all the school board members to get enrolled in this program.
That's good.
Yeah.
So when a new elected official or board of trustee that does join the board, do they automatically go to this training, or do they wait till they're nominated?
So for the training that's provided by CSBA, generally all of our board members attend at the very least the annual conference each
Okay.
year. And there's a whole series of workshops that are provided for board members to really help them be prepared, because when you're first elected, and you're both, have a lot of experience on the board, but when you're first elected, board members are citizens from the community who are thrust into a role of really helping to set policy and oversee a over $300 million budget, an organization with over 3,000 employees.
Plus it's students.
Yeah, plus 35,000
Yeah,
students.
yeah.
Yes, and having it be effective.
Yeah.
At the end of the
Yeah.
day.
Oh, that.
A little thing, yeah.
Wow.
And at the end of the day, I like to say, every time we have a board meeting, I offer all kinds of recommendations. But it truly is the trustees who have to take the heat. They're the ones who have to make the tough decisions, and so it is a critical role for the community and the health of schools in the community. But it is not an easy job.
Yeah. So when this leadership roles are, transferred to the next slate of two members of the board, do they carry on with what you had set as far as your goals? Or do they come up with new goals every year? Or how does this work? Do you have a 5-year plan of how?
We have a retreat that we go to
Okay.
where we set sort of our goals for the following year. Sometimes
Right.
the previous year's goals will continue. It may be something that we've started that we know we need to continue to work on,
Okay.
and something else may come to the fore that really needs to be addressed. And so it's a good chance to remind ourselves of what our priorities are.
So there's continuity.
Sure.
I love that.
Sure.
Okay, so you're not coming up with new directions every year.
No, and I think one of the nice things about our current board is that there isn't a lot of animosity, which can happen. You can end up with
Yeah.
split boards, and it's happened in Fremont Unified in the past. But I think that our current board, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a lot of respect, I think, for each other, and we try to work collaboratively, I think.
Yes, that's one of the reasons I really enjoy working in this team. Of course, the board and superintendent and his staff, and that's the secret to be a very successful and effective team.
And I think your parents know this, they feel it, and then the students feel, oh, this is it, we're supported.
Yeah.
We've got you got our backs. This is great. I think
Yes.
that's
Well, I think it's a way also to show how to behave respectfully.
Absolutely.
The same way we expect our students to behave with
Yes.
each other.
yes.
And you really, anybody who looks at one of our board packets, the amount of information and the number of things that as a school board member you have to know about is just amazing, from intricate details of transportation and contracts and attendance area assignments and student overloads. I mean, just the number of topics that you have to learn, not just a little bit about, but quite a bit about in order to effectively govern a school district. It's really, it's a wonderful opportunity if you're a quick study and you really like to learn new stuff.
Okay, this is a self-serving question because I've always wanted to know this. Your meetings are weekly, right?
Bi-weekly.
Bi-weekly, yeah.
Okay, so you're given your packet. When do you get their packet? A week before the next meeting? 2
If
days?
only it was a week
The
before,
day
it would
before?
be nice. No, generally we'll receive them, will be sent out for Friday. So we have the weekend to read through.
Okay.
When it's the budget report, that
So
can
it's
be
like studying for exams every weekend.
every other weekend.
Every other weekend, okay.
That's
Wow.
correct. It's a big commitment. So that means that you have to sort of always commit your weekend to the reading of the packet, and then come up with questions to the staff, because you don't want surprises
Right.
at the meeting.
Right.
This is also a way to build trust. You don't try to play the game. Hey, I got you.
Right,
That kind of
right.
game, and you you raise questions beforehand and get the answers before the meeting so that you get educated decisions to make.
Okay, that's
And
good to know.
the technical answer is the law requires that all the materials that the board members receive prior to the meeting be available to the public 72 hours before the meeting.
Okay.
So our legal deadline is Sunday night for a Wednesday meeting. We've been pretty committed to getting them out on the Friday ahead of time because we have a huge interest in this community in education and some of the items that the board discusses. So when the board gets their packet, it's also made available to the public. So members of the
Nice.
community are aware of the items the board will be discussing and acting on.
And then
So that's when the emails start.
Yeah, I bet.
Phone
Yeah.
calls,
Because if you have
emails,
a
not
parent,
counting
if
front
you have a
door.
parent concerned about a certain issue, at least they can prepare themselves so they can come to the meeting and then ask intelligent questions and figure out where you guys stand on that. That's great. But I applaud you because that's like cramming for exams every other weekend.
But you definitely do it because you are
Love it.
passionate about
Yes,
education.
absolutely.
You have to
Yeah.
love the job.
And I think we're very lucky with who we have on our board of trustees. That's great.
Thank you.
Now, I want to ask you, Governor Brown has outlined his budget for the coming year. How do you feel the state of California is addressing education for our future after such a rocky past? How do you think this is going to pan
Well,
out?
Look at it. Governor Brown just raised the spending, but to just a minimum like 3%,
Yeah.
barely enough to match the inflation.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, there's prediction that the school district will increase our contribution to the pension programs for the certificated and classified employees, which would be extra expense. Also, with the goods and material price increase, and also, as you know, the school district, not the school district, the water district is going to increase the water fees by
25%.
30%.
30%.
Yes, and so those are all the expenses that we will incur in the future. And so if you look at our reserve, it has already dropped to a minimum like 2%. But after saying that, I'm very proud to say that even when we're really tight, we still take good care of our employees.
Yes.
In the past 2 years, we have been giving them raises that we couldn't afford when the economy was bad. So we will continue to find out ways to take care of their needs, even when Governor Brown is not giving us much money.
I think it's really unfortunate because we're in a very wealthy state.
Yeah.
And even though our cost of living is very high, if you look with the aggregate of income, even with that taken into consideration, we should be able to do better for education.
Yeah.
So I think one of our roles as school board trustees is to be advocates and go and educate our legislators and spend time in Sacramento. And I'll be going to Washington, D.C. for the National School Boards Association meeting as well, to be able to have those conversations with power to say, we're not doing good enough. We had this huge investment after World War II in our education system, and now we are in need of a second influx of funds because of our infrastructure need. Facilities are a huge issue in Fremont Unified.
Absolutely. Now, money is always going to be a major issue for us, but for a parent or the students that you interact with day in, day out, what's on their minds? What are they telling you they need right now?
I think,
Yeah.
oh, sorry.
Go
I
ahead.
was just going to say, well, one, like I said, facilities are a huge issue. Being able to, because we've seen so much growth. The other thing I'm hearing more and more about is mental health issues. I think that the pressures on students to be successful and to be able to continue in their path to secondary education or into the workforce, they're very concerned that they're prepared. And so the stress that our families are feeling is significant.
Wow. Dr.
After I got elected, I realized that actually one important role that we board members play is to be a bridge between the school district and the community. For example, a lot of parents didn't understand how we were funded. They thought they paid huge amount of property tax. And they thought the property tax would all go to the local schools, which is not the case at all.
Right.
Under the current LCFF, we're getting actually below average, the funding per student comparing with our neighboring school districts, just because our unduplicated student percentage is lower. But on the other hand, we face a huge challenge because of the overcrowdedness of the campuses. So we need money, we need a place to land to build new schools. I've been trying to communicate that need to the community, just in case we need to issue more bonds in the future.
Right. I think that's great education for the parents and the community out there. I think that's wonderful because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about the property tax.
Well, and I think that one of the things that most people don't realize is that only a small portion of our community has students.
Right.
So if you don't have children in school, you don't necessarily know all the battles that we're facing with funding. So it's incumbent upon us as school board trustees to be out there and being able to communicate with the larger community on this challenges we have.
Now, for the last couple of minutes that we have with you, because I know your time's tight, for anyone watching and aspires to be a board of trustees, what words of encouragement would you give them to make them run in the future?
I would say one of the most important things you can do is become involved to start with. I think, as Dr. Morris pointed out, there's a huge learning curve, and you want to come with a little bit of understanding about education programs, the specifics to Fremont Unified, and also it gives you an opportunity to show your commitment before you run. I think that there has been, in the past at least, a mistake that people see a role of a school board trustee as a jumping off point for a higher office. And really, if you're not passionate about this job, don't take it on.
Yeah. Would you say the same?
Yes, I totally agree. Actually, it is almost like a full-time job. In my case, I already have a full-time job.
Yeah.
So I have to, leave my work early and just drive back to Fremont early in the afternoon to attend all the meetings. So for anyone who wants to run for such a position, my encouragement would be the same. First, to get involved in the local school activities, and then attend the board meetings to have a more understanding of the basic situation and the basic needs and challenges of this school district. And then, of course, I always see myself as not a representative, but also a bridge between the community and the school district. So building a close tie with the local community is very crucial, because you're not only working for their votes, you also want to represent them.
Right.
Yeah.
And I just have to say, KK, in conclusion, I think it's important for members of the community really to understand we have a great school district in Fremont, and I think the foundation and the strength of that is that we have 5 humble servants of the community elected by the people to really be the trustees to make sure that the school district is the best that it can be.
Absolutely.
And it's sometimes a thankless job, but I think it's also probably incredibly rewarding because you see the impact you have on students.
Yeah.
We don't serve alone. We have a wonderful leader that makes it possible, and team in our leadership.
This is great. Well, just as a community member, I'm proud to call you great leaders. Thank you so much for being here. And from everyone here at Community Conversations, we thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.